Welcome to Shaping Your Pottery with Nic Torres. Today, I am interviewing Amy Rae Hill. She makes pottery that is completely out of this world, literally. She makes space pottery. She is a glazed artist, and her pottery looks really, really great and super unique. Amy, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Now, I know this is a really weird way to start this conversation, but I was very curious. Do you believe in aliens? Because I have my opinions about it, but do you believe in aliens?
Oh, there's that whole Fermi paradox thing, right? I think that it's very self-centered if we believe that we're the only people or life out here in the universe. However, being around scientists a lot online, I do realize that like every time we think that it might be aliens that we observe out there, it's not probably. There's lots of other explanations for it, but I am, yeah, pretty certain that we're not alone out here for sure.
Yeah, I think the same thing. 'Cause there's no way that we could be the only people like in this huge
No,
universe. No way.
no, yeah, there's just like too many possibilities for other things to happen, and probably in ways we don't even know how to perceive. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly. Like, yeah. I just thought I'd start that because I was super curious about that.
it's a good opener.
Yeah. So now, could you tell me the story on how you started glazing your pottery the way you do?
Yeah, so I kind of went about it a slightly different way than probably most ceramic artists because I'm not a potter. I don't like hand build my own pieces. I actually came from a paint your own pottery studio and learned techniques that I kind of synthesized with my painting knowledge from school, and then just became a ceramic painter. And I have a long version of that story, or kind of that's the short version if you want to stick with that.
I would love to hear the long version.
Okay, so it kind of goes way back to when I graduated college back in 2013. I had a BFA in painting, and at that time, I wasn't really expecting to get any job in art. So I was working in like a call center for about 6 months or so. It lasted about that long. And then I jumped on the chance to get my first painting job at like a paint and sip studio that was like brand new to the town I was living in. And it was really fun. It was like, you know, hosting painting parties with people that wanted to learn how to paint landscapes and flowers and things like that. It was just a good time. And it kind of quickly went south with the management and the ownership of the studio. And it ended up with myself and basically four of his five employees like walking out because it was really bad with a lot of kind of mistreatment and um, harassment and things like that. It was not great situation. So when I left that job, I had signed a contract with them in the beginning, which said I it was a non-compete, and it was basically saying that I couldn't paint on pottery at another, or not pottery, pot on canvas at another job for like 2 years. And so that was pretty rough. And I was like, okay, well, it's this bad. I just want to kind of get out of this job, and I'll do something else for 2 years. Doesn't matter. I'll figure it out. But back when I was working at the paint and sip studio, one of my peers from school, she came in with her boss who ran the paint your own pottery studio in town, and they took a class from me. And so they saw what I could do. And she knew my situation kind of after all of that went down, and said that we have a brand new position that we are opening up here at Creativity, which is the pottery studio. And we think you'd be really good for it. So I went in and I thought that, okay, this is not painting on canvas, this is painting on pottery. So that's one way around this non-compete that I had.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that kind of worked out. So then I got that job, and it was just like night and day from the last place that I worked at. The owner knew the ins and outs of everything with like pottery glazing and how to fire it and how to fix problems, and the marketing, the finances. She just like did everything, and so knowledgeable. So I got to work really closely with her and develop my own style and kind of bring what I knew of painting to her really revolutionary kind of organization of pottery glazing techniques. So it was kind of like a perfect matchup of two people working together. But then the kind of like space part of it came in, because at the time I was really interested in this game called Lifeline. It's like a little text adventure game. Ever
Right.
heard of that one?
No, I don't think I have, but like
It was
it
a little
sounds
niche.
interesting.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's a really short game, but it had a really great like fan community, and it was just really nice for me at the time because I was dealing with like some other family issues, health stuff, and so it was just something I could like kind of hang on to for something to look forward to, I guess, what the fan community was doing and having like weekly streams and stuff like that. So I got inspired to paint like a moon plate based on that game, thinking about all the different techniques that I had learned from this pottery studio and my sci-fi interest at the time. And I just kind of figured that this worked really well on this medium, like using like paper masking and etching or sgraffito and like the watercolor effect you can get with some glazes, that it felt more successful than painting on canvas even. And I just loved how things transformed through the kiln, how deep the colors got, how rich it got. So it felt like more of a convincing illusion of, a fantastic kind of outer space world on ceramics than I could ever even achieve on canvas. So I instantly just kind of like fell in love with it and then wanted to do a whole lot more. And that's kind of like where it ended off. And I just kind of kept going.
Right. What were some of the difficulties you faced from transferring from canvas to pottery?
I think that there's a lot of things you can't do with ceramics, as you probably know. Like it has a lot of rules about how thick your glazes can be. Otherwise, you're going to get firing problems. Your glazes are going to show you all of your past mistakes that you ever made.
Right.
As acrylic or something, you can just cover it right up and then it's gone. With glaze, if you're using, low fire underglaze like I am, at least, it's going to stay where it's put, and it's usually pretty transparent. So you have to be really deliberate with your brush strokes or your mark making that you're doing, and like keeping track of, your layers, what order you put things in. So I guess I just had to be a lot more deliberate in my process, a little bit less just see how it goes, which I think helped me in the long run to make my art process a lot more enjoyable, I think.
Do you have a list like as you're like going painting your pottery?
Like a list of
Like
techniques or
things to like do in what order?
oh, I don't have like a physical list of it. I kind of just keep it all in my head. But I kind of, yeah, I do have a list that's a little bit flexible of, I'm going to put down this, if I'm, for instance, painting like a moon or a planet, like I have to put down the color of the planet first, and it's going to look really messy. And then the next step is to cover that and mask it with like a piece of paper as a circle to create the shape. And then the last phase is putting down that black on top of the color, to make sure that I have a really crisp edge when I remove the mask, to kind of keep it looking really clean and neat. So yeah, kind of light to dark. Etching into the glaze is usually one of the last phases. It can work with like layering glaze back into it. So yeah, there's a lot of techniques that are pretty flexible in the order. Just kind of depends on the project.
Yeah. Now, how much testing did it like actually take for you to get kind of your process down?
I would say everything is kind of a test. I mean, I learn something every time something gets fired. And I think nowadays I have a better ability to predict how things are going to turn out. So I'm a little less surprised than I used to be. I think I mean, to really get into my own style with pottery glaze, it probably took me a few years of kind of testing different subject matter out, if I wanted to make landscapes or if I wanted to make just planets or nebulae and things like that. I think I think back when I first started, and this was like around 2016, painting kind of space imagery. It was a lot more formulaic, and I thought about the kind of images that I could easily reproduce. So like it was a lot more strict of like, I'm going to put down a color and then I'm going to put down a piece of paper to mask it. And then I'm going to paint the background, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But now, yeah, now I kind of, I guess I trust myself a little bit more trust the pottery glaze a little bit more, getting to know it better. And so it can be a more like painterly process. I can say, well, I put this nebula in this spot, and I think I can probably get it to move a little bit this way if I want to. So I guess I, I I can play around with things more and trust how it's going to turn out over time. It's not very scientific, just a little bit of knowledge like each time you
Yeah,
fire something.
like each time you do it, you're getting better at it each time, right?
Right, right.
So now I have something right here. Hold up. What is it? How do you find inspiration for you when you're making your pottery, with your glazing?
That's a good question. It kind of changed over the years too. Now I do mostly commissions, so the inspiration comes a lot of times from the customers, and they are really good at giving me a lot of information and ideas to work with. Sometimes it's kind of emotional. Sometimes it's just an appreciation for the beauty of space. Sometimes I learn things too all the time because a lot of my customers work for like JPL or SpaceX or other space industries, and they know a lot more than I do in those fields because I definitely am not a scientist, and so
Yeah.
I'm learning, about different like celestial objects all the time. But I think on the things I've chosen to make over the years, I was doing a lot more kind of solitary astronauts in like the vastness of space at the beginning because I was feeling a little bit like I was on a sort of unstable ground with like all the stuff going on in my personal life and things like that. And nowadays, I think I've transformed it a little bit more uplifting, and I'm trying to make more, figures out in space, maybe working together, working towards something, coming together. I want to put out something into the world that we should aspire to, I guess, at this point.
Hmm. Have you ever heard of a break pot?
No.
Yeah, I don't think. I think my ceramics teacher came up with this. So basically, you take a vase that has been bisque fired, and then you break it with a hammer into like multiple pieces, and then you will paint or glaze like the sections that broke off, and then you glue it back together, and it turns out really cool. Like, I have this right here. I don't know if you can see.
Oh.
So this is what I
Oh,
made.
wow. That's so
And
cool.
I
So
thought
it
that'd be
didn't go ahead.
I thought that'd be really interesting for you because that would add a lot more, like, I guess, detail to a lot of different pieces.
Yeah, I've honestly thought about breaking something before. I've just never committed to it. But yeah, I like that idea. I thought about breaking something after it's been fired and then putting it together or breaking it before. It looks like, did you just paint that and then break it and then just glue it together? Did it go into the kiln or again?
Yeah, so that's not like glaze, that's acrylic paint.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so I broke it first, and then I painted every single piece, and then you glue it back together with just Elmer's glue.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it's more of a like fine art kind of thing. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
but I thought that would be very interesting for you because just I think it would make your pottery look really cool if you did that, something like that.
Yeah, I have thought about it, yeah, and it's something that's been on my mind. Maybe one day. Keep saying that.
Now, if you could explain your process for when you're actually making your or glazing, what would that process look like?
So usually I start off just the piece of bisque is already here. I have, like, for instance, there's this unglazed vase. I have a bunch of these. I don't have to worry about the sculpting process or the throwing process. So then it's just researching what I want to do. A lot of times I'll look up like Hubble imagery and see, maybe looking for certain colors of like nebulae or different planets or stars, things like that, um, to work from, and then kind of see how that will fit on the piece itself. Different pieces work better for different kind of celestial objects. And then once I have a plan, I might do a little sketching. I might not sometimes. It kind of depends on how the form looks to see how it fits. I might sketch directly onto the vase or the teapot, or I sketch, if it's like an astronaut figure, I might sketch that out first and then on a piece of paper, scan it. And sometimes I'll even transfer it on to the piece after I kind of resize it in the computer, and then use like carbon paper to just like draw it on there, and it burns away,
Yeah.
when you're firing. So then I would just start with, usually like the lightest color or the color I want to bring out if I'm using the sgraffito technique and etching into it. And from there, I kind of layer a lot with sea sponges to get sort of a cloudy effect. So that's a common tool that I use. Um, and then kind of, they're all slightly different processes, but work that until I get the colors right. The very last step is adding some of the black, because the black glaze can be it can overtake all the colors if you let it. It's a very thin line of just kind of walking how much black you use to like the dark blue. And I want to get that nice soft fading from color to the blackness of space. So that's usually the last step. And then after I finish the whole painting part, I've got it just the way I want to, let it dry for at least a day, and then take it and I dip it in clear glaze and then let that dry. And then I fire it to cone 06. So this is pretty standard, like paint your own pottery studio process. And then it's out the next day, Dremel off the little stilt marks on the bottom, because I put them on stilts so the whole bottom is painted too. And going back to the clear glaze part, I do that so that the whole thing is food safe and usable, and usually wipe a lot of it off of the black area, because you can see a little like cloudy mist if you leave it on there too much. But after it's fired, dremeling, and then it's pretty much ready to go.
Could you explain that dremeling?
Mm-hmm. So I take a little Dremel, this tool that has like a little sander on the edge of it, and go to the bottom of the piece. Have some right here. So this is all glazed down here. It had to sit on a stilt. And it usually has like 3 little sharp shards that drip down from the glaze when it's resting on a stilt. So if you don't Dremel it and sand it down, you'll slice your finger on the bottom of it. And I've done that several times. So you want to make sure to sand that down so that you can touch it and it's not going to accidentally cut you.
So it's used to make it smooth.
Yeah. And you can also Dremel off anything like, like if you get oolites, little stones in the glaze, or anything weird that happens on the outside, I guess.
That is very interesting. So now, when it comes to commissions, how often are you doing commissions?
They usually open every few months, and I'm about to open another round probably in May. I don't have a date set quite yet, but that I usually take on like between 20 and 40. It depends on like the season. And I think probably somewhere around 20 or 30 this next time. The projects tend to be taking a little bit longer than they used to. They're just a little bit more elaborate nowadays. But I think if anybody wants to try out for a commission, because they do go really fast when I put them on Etsy, you can sign up for my mailing list at amyraehill.com, and then I'll just let everybody know when it's coming.
Now, when it comes to pricing for your commissions, how do you like to think about that?
That's also a good question. It does change a lot. I've definitely gone up in price over time, because you have to figure in, how much your time is worth, really. And it's not only necessarily how long it takes you to make something, because the more skilled you get at something, you'll probably get faster at it. So you don't want to charge yourself less if you're getting more skilled at something. So I don't have an exact science. I kind of just go with whatever feels right at the time. I remember back when I was in college and a visiting artist came, and one of my peers always asked that same question: how do you price your work? And the best response was just like, however much you're willing to part with it for, pretty much. And I've always kind of stuck with that in my head. And the more I kind of like feel like I'm really putting in a lot of detail and care and things like that, I kind of try to match the price to that feeling.
Right. That's some great advice, actually, because you're working for your time, but you don't want to sacrifice price just because of that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Now, hold on. So you have a bachelor's in fine arts. How did that help you with your overall just painting?
I think it really helps with being disciplined and kind of working more in an entrepreneurial way overall, because the BFA is a 5-year degree. So the last year is just kind of like professional practice where you're really responsible for getting a whole body of work together and then having a show at the end of the year and showing what you've done. So that helped me have that focus to stick with a subject matter and theme for a long period of time. And then to develop it, maybe create even like an artist statement, what you feel about your work, what you're trying to say, what message you're trying to send. So I think it just helped me work in a disciplined, really professional way.
And would you say that kind of inspired you more to make, I guess, more paintings at the time?
Yeah, I feel like the paintings I was making in college are a lot different than what I'm doing now. But there's definitely days where I was spending very long hours in the painting studio, working on these like more large scale canvases, like 3 feet by 4 feet or 4 feet by 4 feet. And I do not recommend all of my work practices from when I was like 22.
Yeah.
I try to make a more steady pace nowadays and actually try to work myself a little bit less to have more of a work-life balance, something I've had to learn more recently than back in the day, because it's not sustainable, the crunch time working on, especially on something like art where it needs to be, taken with a lot of care. So there's a lot I've learned of what not to do and the kind of painting that I want to, keep and maybe want to move away from. And I do think that I developed a really good understanding of my own voice in college, getting my painting degree and kind of figuring out how to symbolize things with my subjects that I choose to paint.
Now, when it comes to work-life balance now, how do you approach it?
Yeah, I try to set a good schedule for myself, and I actually teach art classes on the side too, and I've minimized that to 2 days a week so that I can spend my like daytime hours working on painting or other things that go into this business. And so I try to set hours, in the morning times during, especially Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, to get a lot of work done. Tuesdays and Thursdays to have a little bit more maybe admin work time, because a lot of the time I spend on this business isn't just painting. A lot of it's like photographing or spending time just firing or like working with customers. Consulting like 40 different customers with 40 different ideas takes a lot of time too. And then there's like marketing on social media, things like that. So there's all these other facets of running your own art business where you have to be like the accountant, the marketing department, the like administration office, all of that stuff that kind of goes into those hours during the week. And then I try to keep my evenings more free. It doesn't always work out, but I try.
That's great. Now, on a while back on your Instagram page, you made a mug that had the female Titan from Attack on Titan. How often do you make mugs or just pottery just for yourself?
Oh man, not as often as I should. But that one was fun. I always have fun, yeah, just doing some fan art for myself. I feel like that's one of the greatest gifts of like being an artist, is that you can just make merch for yourself if you feel like it. But I try to get something in for myself after every round of commissions as kind of like a little reward, and just paint something for me that I want to keep just to enjoy. Because I have a whole cabinet of mugs that is nice just to have something to remind yourself that like, it's pretty cool what you do, and like to keep it for yourself. Because a lot of the stuff I have gets shipped out, and so I don't spend more time like looking at it and studying it. And I'm kind of a firm believer that like looking at your own work and studying it, putting it on the walls is really great, because then you can see what you did before, maybe what you want to change, or you can just feel pride in like what you've been able to do when you're not feeling maybe that ambitious or like motivated. So it is nice to do that routinely just to get something to appreciate for yourself.
So it kind of sparks your creativity when you keep your pottery.
Yeah. I don't do it very often, but it is nice to do it every once in a while.
So now that we're on the topic of the female Titan, what made you want to make the female Titan?
Oh, I thought she was a badass. I love that Annie's character in the show. I just thought that like her running and then just like easily knocking away all these guys on horses was just like something you don't see every day, especially I feel like in anime, you don't see like particularly like very strong women very often without um, kind of being like overly sexualized and stuff like that. So I thought she was just inspiring and had like a mission that she was set out to do, you know, just wanting to go on her run back to the city center or whatever. So I was inspired by her.
I feel like Attack on Titan isn't like the normal anime. It's very like it can be like dark sometimes and just like have a lot of different like twists and turns in that show.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of like societal commentary. I'm not even done with it yet. I'm trying to get through the last season, but yeah, it's there's a lot of layers to it for sure.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
this latest season pretty crazy too.
Yeah, I am excited to catch up. I need to do that.
Now, this will probably be my last question.
Okay.
If you had to give three pieces of advice for people looking to start making pottery the way you do, what would they be?
Um, I it's hard because I know I've had certain advantages and I got lucky, you know, getting into like a paint your own pottery studio. I got to know suppliers and things like that where I can get bisque from, and I got lucky with finding a kiln that was affordable that I could buy. So I don't just want to say, you know, work hard at it. A lot of it is kind of luck getting into it, but um, the biggest thing I think is different is just that not necessarily for ceramicists in general, but like if you can just take advantage of when like luck comes your way, if you're able to see it and jump on it. You know, for example, when I um, left the painting world and kind of went into the more fired arts world, like I had nothing like that on my radar at the time. But if you're able to kind of envision a way that it might work for you and be open to it and not have a very rigid plan, that's going to serve you really well. So I would say just keep your mind open to opportunities that present themselves. And the next thing I would say is to don't feel pressure to follow the trends of those around you. I feel like I, for a long time, was bogged down with that after college, especially, and it kept me from making art for a long time. So just remember to do what makes you happy, and you're probably in the wrong bubble if you are not finding your audience. An audience for everyone, is what I believe. So you might just have to step out of the group that you're in to find the people that are going to appreciate the kind of message you want to send or the kind of work that you want to make. So that's number two. And I guess number three, let's see, um, is to respect your time. Like maybe make a deliberate plan to have downtime, time where you're not working on your art, because you need that. And I didn't realize it was something I necessarily had to plan when I started working for myself, because when you're working a job where you have a boss and things like that, they will plan your downtime for you. They tell you when your time off is. But if you're doing it sort of the entrepreneurial route, you have to do that yourself. So do really, really take care to give yourself a break and downtime and use it deliberately to rest and get rejuvenated. So those are the three main things I think are most important.
I like that last advice because I for a while I was definitely like go go go, and I had to force myself to take a break. And when I
Yeah.
took that break, I was definitely like feeling a lot better.
Oh yeah, you need it. It makes you actually more productive to take a break and to come back. Like you have more energy to focus after that.
Yeah, I totally